One day, a teacher decided to give every student and every faculty in the school a test. And it was one simple test, one simple question, one simple answer. Now, the format for this exam was very simple. It was one question. And if you got it right, he would hand the paper back to you with an A+ on the paper. Now, as the teacher handed them the test, he also immediately gave them the answer so that they could just answer it, hand it back to them, and get the grade. Now, some students did hand the test paper back with the right answer, and they got their A+ and moved on. Other students thought, this can't be that simple, so they racked their brains trying to figure out what it is. They went into other textbooks. They went into other pieces of information. As they ventured out, they came to different conclusions. They came to different answers because they looked for different resources than what the teacher gave them. Now, the teacher wasn't going to simply leave them confused, so he gave them demonstrations, illustrations to the simplicity of the equation, but they still had to answer it. But some of the students, in fact, many of the students, began to give the images of the illustration as the answer to the test. And the teacher would still keep handing back the test paper and telling them to redo it. Now, there would come a point in time where the teacher would say, time's up, pencils down, and you have to hand in what you've got. So the students began to think, it can't be this simple. Now, some students wrote down the correct answers on their paper, but because of their lack of confidence in the simplicity of the answer that the teacher gave, even after all the illustrations, demonstrations, and examples, they weren't confident enough to hand the paper in to the teacher. So they asked other people for advice and for answers. Some began doing a compare and contrast, but they all forgot in this process of time that this was an open book test, and the teacher was making himself readily available for anybody who had questions. And the teacher would even tell them, this is the correct answer. Put it on your paper and hand it in to me, and you'll get your A. But as the students began to think, they began to ponder. It is not that simple. It must be a test of another sort. It's complicated, so let's put our efforts together. Now, they each brought in their equations and their studies and their homework, and they all brought in what they perceived to be the right answer. Now, anybody and everybody was allowed and welcome to join in their circle that was searching for the real answer, as long as it was nobody who used what the teacher said the answer was. Those people were excluded and not allowed into the circle. Now, the problem with this strategy was they were ignoring the teacher that was there in the classroom, readily available to answer all and every question. They were ignoring his textbook that he left them. They were ignoring all the resources, all the illustrations, and all the demonstrations to exemplify why the simple answer was the simple answer. So instead, they continued to complicate it. They continued to rationalize confusing answers rather than the simple answer. They began to ask other teachers whose expertise was not this question. Now, no teacher would ever answer a question that is so simple without absolute confidence in themselves and in their answer. And as they would ask these confident teachers, they'd be confident in their wrong answers. Now, this process would also require the students to ignore the fact that the teacher was already handing back tests that were already correct. And the students would go and tell the other students, hey, this is the answer. It is that simple. You just need to answer it and hand it in to your teacher. They just wouldn't take this for an answer. Ultimately, at some point, as these students are racking their brains, the teacher is going to say, pencils down, time is up, give in whatever it is that you have. And the students are aware that they do not have the right answer on their paper. What does all this mean? I fear, lest by any means, as the serpent beguiled Eve through his subtlety, so your minds should be corrupted from the simplicity that is in Christ. God has given us demonstrations, illustrations, and all things pertaining to giving us the simple answer and helping us to understand it. Some of us know it's the right answer, but we refuse to go and bring it with confidence to the teacher to get the grade. Now is the time to gain confidence that the answer that is simple, the answer that isn't that complicated, but is true, is the right answer. My friend, the test is simple and the answer is simple. And once we give the answer that is given to us in the textbook to our teacher, he'll take our test and hand us back the A+ that we were looking for our entire lives.